Okay, so we had such a great time talking with Kathryn about all the stuff in regards to how you can use your story to serve others. There was a topic about self-trust that we didn't get a chance to dive into. So we're going to do a Small Biz Bites after party and get into it. Hello, everyone. Hello. I am Gwendolyn G.R. Houston Jack, and this is Small Biz Bites. We are streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Again, if you're on YouTube, we would love it if you would like, share, and subscribe to what we do here, because we do some amazing stuff. We have amazing conversations, and we find a way to chat with people who have a gift that just needs to be shared with the world. And that person happens to be Kathryn. Kathryn, how are you?
I'm excellent. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I think this is something that really isn't talked about a whole lot. So this is going to be fun.
I agree. And I thought about when you were talking on our previous episode of Small Biz Bites, and it was that topic of self-trust and rebuilding it. I thought about my own journey in rebuilding. And a lot of times, for a number of us, we make decisions that go like sideways, and we can lose faith in our decision making and the quality of our decisions.
Yes.
And we react to that because I gotta tell you, I moved here for love. That didn't work out so well. Ended up homeless. And when I met my husband, even after we were married, Gwendolyn held on to the keys to her apartment for about 8 months. 8 months. I had this thing of, I will never go there again.
Yes.
I will never be in a place of not having my own. And he knew it. He was like, I know you still have your apartment keys. But it took me some time to work through the mess, which you also talked about.
Sure,
let's get right back into it. Talk about self-trust. Let's start with that.
The reality is that if you do not trust yourself, there is no way you can trust anyone else. So if you're finding that you're in a relationship or a job, really, if we really look at it, so much of what we experience trauma-wise and joy-wise too is in relationship to other people, whether it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a business relationship, your boss, a coworker, whatever, family, friends. It's really all a reaction with the interrelationship of other people. So trust is something that I believe comes innately with us. It's when we start to make choices that are against that, there comes this discord between your actions and what you know is right and true for you. So your mind is saying something else, your heart is saying something else, your actions are expressing something counter to that. So that's where the discord is, and that's where we begin to lose trust with ourselves. It can appear to be an external thing, but it's not. Even our trauma, and it could be physical trauma, sexual trauma, emotional trauma, and those all are devastating. Emotional trauma can be one of the most, gaslighting can be one of the most long-term destructive traumas to suffer. However, it's us starting down that path to make a small, tiny choice that we know isn't for us, but we do it. We think we do it for the sake of compromise. Right? So that's where it starts. That's where it starts.
It is. I laugh because my brother was like, we have to have a real conversation about the choices, because you know how you go through this process of putting the blame on everybody else but yourself? It's because of this person, XYZ happened.
Yes.
He said, Gwendolyn, you got to be honest about why you did what you did. Forget
Yes.
this part of it. Why were you doing what you were doing? And I have to admit, there was a part of me that thought, I may never ever meet somebody, so let me see if this is the person I could possibly marry and create a home with. Like, you know, we went through the whole, what's the gracious word for my foolishness? We played a part, is what it was.
And that's what it is.
We went through it like, yes, of course, da, 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 da. All the while, in your heart of hearts, there wasn't the foundation to truly build a home. And it was the compromise of, I may not meet anybody, so I'm going to make this work. Right?
Right. And that's the phrase right there, is we try to make something work that doesn't work. And we try to twist ourselves in all different kinds of ways, thus creating the mess.
Yes. And when it didn't work out, it was there some genuine hurt? There was some hurt, but there was also it's not a bad thing that it didn't work out, because it's not as if you were really wanting to be in that relationship. Let's just go ahead and call a spade a spade.
Yes,
absolutely. We were faking it. It was just, you know, trying to fit into a narrative that wasn't mine at the time, was not mine.
Right.
And so I look back and say, okay. And then you start doing the accountability conversation. So then I said, Gwendolyn, how did you end up here? You are fairly intelligent. Okay, I'm really smart, really intelligent. How did I end up here? How do we make this decision that you are sleeping on someone's sofa? You can't even get your ends to even talk to each other, right? They're like, we're not talking. How did you end up here? And so you get to a place of, you know, there is some depression.
Oh, sure. Well, there's shame too, and judgment against yourself, which is kind of under the wire, but it's there. And it just literally, you kind of shove those tiny little pieces down too, when literally they're feeding your lack of self-trust. They're literally feeding that and creating really this kind of it's almost like an undermining entity that we create ourselves based in the shame and the judgment, and like, what am I doing? I'm smarter than this. I'm strong. How did I end up here, and why do I continue in it? And you know, that's really where you have to be able to get to, as you did, get to that place of actually honestly asking yourself some questions. But that takes you taking the 100% responsibility for your life and for your choices.
Honesty. Can we take a little side step on the honesty? And I love my brother for coming to me and saying, you must take responsibility for your part of this.
Yes.
Because this is not a one person deal. You know, like, you just didn't get out here and be like, oh my God, I just didn't know. These were conscious decisions.
Yes.
With a motive that more than likely probably was not the right motive, right? Because you're trying to do something to make things work.
Right. Make things something they're not.
Yes. That honesty conversation, we had to really sit with ourselves.
And that's when too, you know, when you're kind of in that pointing the finger, blaming, you're in that kind of victimization mentality, and you're not taking responsibility at that point. So when you can stop the finger pointing and blame, that's when, as your brother mentioned and you actually displayed, that's when you were able to actually take responsibility and look at what was what in the face for real.
Yeah. And create a plan to go forward. So I don't want to jump to that part. Let me go back to the rebuilding. What advice, beyond, and I know for myself, I've told people many a time, and I was lucky. Is lucky the right word? No, I'm not going to use luck. It was how it worked out. The company I worked for had benefits that gave us access to a counselor.
Okay,
so
sure.
taking advantage of resources. How do people start getting to a place of rebuilding self-trust before they get to a counselor? Because you do have to recognize, like, there's got to be a place in it. I need to recognize how I got here.
Right.
What
And
advice do you have?
it's not even maybe so much about how you got there.
Okay.
It says, okay, I'm here now. Now what do I do? That doesn't take me back and doesn't smack of the same thing I've been doing. So it's that level of recognition that you're willing to take responsibility. You want to. You don't need to continue to analyze it and point at all the other places that were responsible for you being in the place that you are. But if you have to really come to a point where you desire change. I know for me, it was all I wanted was for the pain to stop.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted. I wanted the pain, the anxiety, and all of I couldn't trust any of my decision making, nothing. And for me, I had to find and mine was long term. So it was a decade for me. And I had to find kind of little things that were safe for me to, because I needed help. I wanted guidance, but I didn't know what to do or who to go to or where to go. And I turned to just some practical tools. One of them, I'll tell you right now, was Oracle cards. It was a safe place. I follow two specific creators, super practical. Actually, I've created my own deck coming out of that. But it was a safe place for me to have connection because I was so isolated at that time that I didn't trust anybody because I didn't trust myself either. So I couldn't see trust outside of me. So it was me believing that, okay, I can take this action that is for my good, for my benefit. And that was how I started. But what in general, if it's not such a long-term effect, because what really long-term trauma does is it undermines our strengths.
Yeah.
So all we're left with is our weaknesses. And then the trauma just reinforces the weaknesses and continues to undermine the strength. So as if we don't have any anymore. But in rebuilding trust with yourself, it's starting with those small choices. Like you have a choice between wearing two things today, and you really want to wear this one, but it's as small as that. Wearing the one that you want to wear, as opposed to, we can all use, I don't use the word should, and I wrote a post about that whole thing, but that's the word that everybody uses, either should or supposed to. And recognizing that is a big piece of it too, but just making that one decision. I'm going to wear this because I want to. Those are the small things we can do to start rebuilding, because it was torn down little by little. Yeah. Even though it may seem like, oh my God, how did I get here? But if you look over the time span, what were the little tiny things that you started with? He didn't want you to wear a certain thing, or he wanted to go somewhere and you really didn't want to go and you kept saying yes, or it can be very small things that start the undermining. So you have to start then the same with the small things, so that you know that you can trust yourself. I chose that because I wanted to wear it, and I wore it. It has to be followed by the action, not just the choice, because the action is what makes it real. Everything, no matter what the choice is. But if we're building trust, we need to choose ourselves first in every situation.
The small things, and it's I immediately go back to and I told friends about this, but there was a guy that I dated, and I admit, I was far more submissive than people would ever have imagined. And I remember him saying he was very particular about how I kept my hair. I've never really been a hair person. It's just not where I thrive. If the whole world was bald, I'd be happy, be fine. But I got to a place where I chopped it off. And I remember seeing him, and he was mildly angry. And he was like, you just need to go and relax that shit. And I was like, that is the best thing you've ever said to me. You have no idea how happy that made me. Right? Because it was like, Gwendolyn is choosing what makes me happy.
Yes.
And what makes her feel good, and you don't like it, even better. So yeah, it's that very small decision of what you're wearing, what you're eating, how you dress, how you keep your hair. We don't realize how powerful that itty bitty decision really is.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Which is one of the things, when a woman's ready to make a big change or some kind of a change, they cut their hair off. That is literally one of these signals that I'm looking for change. I'm looking for something different. And you know what, to you all, I'm choosing me because I'm cutting this off. Or it's a different color, or whatever the scenario is, but it's something bold. It's a bold change.
That was definitely mine. Mine was, I cut off all of what the prior me was. So it was a physical change to match what was going on internally.
Yes.
It's like, I am not the same chick. So I advise you to tread lightly.
Right. And your external action was a display of your internal choice. Because that's where the choice starts, is here. But then we take the action to make it real.
Yes.
Right there.
So let's slide into that, because I'm thinking of my own journey of getting to this place and going with the internal choices, making them external, and starting anew. Didn't happen overnight. By no means. We had to work on some stuff. And you had mentioned that, you can't just go out and rebuild when you got like a whole bunch of mess going on. Like you gotta figure that out.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's the mess has been created. It's like a giant pile of sticks and branches and whatever. Well, you can't build anything on top of that, because everything's going to get crushed and it's going to slide sideways, and you literally cannot build on top of that. So, and it's not necessarily about picking through it and saying, well, this is this and that is that and this came from there. It doesn't. It's not about that. It's about clearing it so that you can actually have a strong foundation and build your life on top of that foundation that we're born with. But we end up putting all of this, and we're taught so much of it. We put all this crap on top of it and then try to build something on top of it. And you just can't do that.
Yeah. You can't.
You cannot build on top of your mess.
You got to have a solid
foundation. Your trauma or whatever you'd like to call it. You can't build on top of it.
Because it'll definitely show itself. Like I was
absolutely.
My husband, when he mentioned, he's like, I know you still have the key to your apartment. And I was like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? He's like, no, he said, I get it. You have to learn in relationships, right? As well as yourself. Things are going to be good, that you are secure. You can lay your head down and not be concerned. Like that takes some work. It's not an overnight thing. And, even who you are as this new person, this rebirth, if you will, like you're tackling things for the first time, but yet you're doing it again. Because there's history back here. There is history. You don't forget it, because it does creep up, but you don't want to use it to make all of your decisions moving forward.
Right. Exactly. Because the one thing we have to remember is that we are not our past. And what's in front of us or before us right now is not our past, actually. So you can't make a decision. And again, we're trained really to make the choices based on past failures for the most part. And, maybe even some successes. But we can only work with what is at hand. And if we don't let the ghosts of our past interfere with that or influence us, then we can make a much more clear choice.
Let me just put a pause right there, because I recall as a training hiring manager, I would tell new hires that whatever baggage they had from their previous job, to leave it at the door.
Mm-hmm.
I said, don't leave you. Like, we want all of you, but leave whatever old baggage you had at the door. Pick up some new baggage, because you're going to learn some new ways to work, some new ways to learn, some new ways to thrive in a community. People love to say, oh, well, back in the day I did and so, but that was back in the day. We're not that company. You're not there. So why bring that here? Like, you don't. And it was easy to say to these new hires. And then for myself, when I got back into the dating pool, because the first time around, it was like, okay, this sucks. Yeah. So we took time for ourselves. We got back in the dating pool, and I was like, okay, this is the moment I had an inkling that the guy I was dating was cheating. I didn't do we can work this out. It was more of a, hey, we got to talk. He's like, yeah, let's talk. I was like, yeah, it's over, because this ain't working. And that was it. He's like, what do you mean? Yeah, it's not working, kid. Sorry, not sorry. I don't need
it. You skip the negotiating part.
Right. There's like
no negotiating. Right. And that's really what it comes down to is, you really have to make a choice of what's negotiable and what's not for you. And no matter what it's about.
Right. So I thought, oh, okay, Gwendolyn. So this power of we don't have to wait and worry. And I didn't take, even though that guy, because, I was on the road for business, and I'd be gone like 3.5 weeks out of a month, typically 4 or 5 months straight. And we only got 12, right? So I'm gone for a while. So when I'm on my break, all of a sudden now I can't find him. And I thought, is this guy cheating? Is he? Feels funny. Okay, forget it. If I don't feel secure, I'm bouncing.
Yes, right. Absolutely. It's when we go against that feeling, that's the time that we lose trust. So you, in doing that right away, I'm choosing me. I don't need an explanation or any of your justifications or anything. And you took action. That was it.
Yeah.
Those are the ways that we can repeatedly build trust with ourselves.
Yeah. The plus to that was we took another break. We got back in the dating pool, but we didn't bring the idea of, well, the last guy did this. So it was like, no, the whole new time, whole new set of people. We are open for whatever happens.
Yes. And that's the key right there. You can't, if you can go into it without an agenda, but knowing your own personal signals and guidelines, without having to kind of squeeze somebody into that, know when it's no for you.
Yeah.
So really want to date. I know I've been there too. So I finally realized that, you know what? I can't be afraid of it and want it at the same time. So I made a choice that said, okay, this is it. I might have to kiss a bunch of frogs, but I am all in. And my husband literally showed up within hours of me making that decision.
I don't know if he was there in a matter of hours. We went through a couple of frogs, but he was there. It was okay, I'm going, I'm just gonna show up and we'll see what happens and ride the wave, and it just works out. But I think about the number of us who bring that trauma with us because we haven't dealt with whatever we need to deal with.
Yes.
Like at some point, it something you said about wanting to make a change. You know how people say, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired?
Yeah.
Nothing changes if nothing changes. You gotta want to make that change though. Like that has to be from you.
And you don't, the thing is, you don't have to wait till the pain of not doing it becomes greater than the pain of doing it. We really have to relearn how to be completely honest and open, especially with ourselves and then with other people, because honesty is the only compass that we need for us to have literally the life of joy that we actually want. So we can't make someone into something, you can't base anything on a lie.
Yeah, and it's funny how you mention that, because I'm thinking the way that looking back at the past, the only way, well, I should say only, because there's been a couple ways, but one of the ways that it has influenced how I show up is being clear and honest in my communication. So I told the future hubs, when he was bringing the flowers and whatnot, it's like, look, if you are not the person who brings flowers all the time, I don't think you should do it, because you're setting the tone for what is to be expected in the future.
Yes.
If you're an every now and then guy, that's great. But you don't have to do all this extra. Like, it's not even necessary if that's not what you normally do.
Right. And expectations can really be an Achilles heel for all of us. Because expectations inevitably set us up for disappointment and the other person up for failure. So it's really, but to have that open conversation, that was the key right there. It wasn't even necessarily about what he was doing or whatever, but it brought up the conversation too, for you to have an open and honest conversation and say to him, look, if this isn't you, then, I just want to know you, right? Isn't that the case? You wanted to know him, who he was. And then, you do the same for him, because then everything's based on honesty, and it naturally builds trust.
Yes.
Too.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt pretty good about the choice. I was like, well, I think this guy, he's seen most of my foolishness. He saw a good deal of my foolishness before he even considered, okay, maybe this will work out. It's like, this is who I am, sir. So I don't know. Like, this isn't going to change. It may get a little bit worse. It might. I don't know. But this is who you're dealing with right here. So you can handle this. I'm all in.
Right. And when we're rebuilding trust with ourselves too, we have to be open to who we are. We have to stop hiding behind all the things we're trying to be for somebody else that isn't us. So we're not fitting ourselves into somebody else's mold. We're understanding what our own mold is. And I don't even like to think of it as a mold, because I'm not good with limitations and the cattle chute kind of mentality. So, but some people feel safe there, and that's great. I just know that for me, that doesn't ever work. I like to be open to possibilities. I don't have a bucket list, because that limits you to these specific things. And I'm like, I don't have a list. I'm open to all possibilities, because they come at different times of your life.
They do. So let me do this as we wrap this up. Do you have any advice or tools that you would suggest to the viewers who are looking at rebuilding their self-trust?
I think, again, first things first is you're not trying to analyze the how you got where you are. Okay. And recognize, okay, I'm here. What do I do now? And it would be really great for you to be able to recognize some really clear areas where you have a tendency to say yes when you want to say no. Say no when you want to say yes. Those are so easily pinpointed, those things. So the next time your friend asks you to go to such and such a place, and you say yes and you really don't want to go, then I suggest that you say no. But start with things like that. I really don't like pink. I don't want any more pink. Or everybody started giving you like frogs or something, because one time you said you liked frogs, and now you feel bad telling them I don't like frogs anymore. You can make a choice to put an end to the frog terror. I mean, really can. So it's really those really simple things that really come to your mind immediately. Those are the things that's the place to really start.
That is.
And then obviously to find a therapist at some point and some counseling. That is always helpful. A life coach might be helpful for you as well.
Mm-hmm.
I run a free women's empowerment group on Meetup, something along those lines where you could find a safe community, but professional help, is always helpful when you find something you connect with.
Yeah, I was going to say that. We're right on time. So since you brought it up, because again, counselor or therapist, make sure if that's what you need, you get that.
Right.
help.
Yeah. Somebody licensed. Yes.
Somebody licensed. Mm-hmm. But people who would like to connect with you, speak more with you, would you share that, ma'am?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. It is my home. All of my offerings are there. You can schedule a chat with me. You can join one of my meetup groups. I do have also just created a fresh new paid membership group that is it's a higher tier, more focused level of coaching if you would like that. But yes, LinkedIn is the best place to get me under Kathryn Dawe. And I just got my badge. Did you see?
No, I haven't.
Top coaching and
I'm like 2 days behind here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's very exciting.
Nice. Look at you. Okay, I see. That is awesome sauce.
Yeah.
I'll have to get on there. Like I try to give myself 2 days to get on there. It's like maybe an hour each time to get in there and get things around. I'm a little behind. I'm not gonna. It's been one of those kinds of weeks.
That's okay. We all get to choose to do our thing and what's best for us. And that's really what to keep in mind. And we don't have to apologize for it either.
You know what? You are correct. You are very correct about that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that reminder.
I don't do it anymore.
So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in for this after party with Kathryn. And we can't thank her enough for sharing this information, because this one about self-trust is a big one. I mean, there are a number of us who feel as if we made a wrong decision here and there, or we keep making these wonky decisions and I just don't trust myself to do X, Y, Z. There is hope for every single one of us. We can definitely make the change. Definitely make the change. So thank you all for tuning in. We're going to be back with some more great people. Until then, I've got some outro music.
Thank you for watching another episode of Small Biz Bites with Gwendolyn R. Houston Jack, where we chat with other creatives and small business owners about their journey. And we also invite you to like, share, and subscribe to the GR Houston Jack YouTube channel, where you can get the latest and greatest.